Hello, loreheads, and welcome to The League, exploring the League of Legends lore from A to Z. My name is Rebecca.
And I'm John.
My name is Mark.
And today we're talking about the Netflix television series Arcane, or Act 1 of it, anyway.
Yes.
Which came out last week.
Yeah, on Saturday. Now, real quick, if you haven't watched the show yet, and you're coming here to decide whether or not it's worth your time, let me just go ahead and speak for everyone here and say, yes, you should absolutely watch it. Pause this, go to Netflix and watch it, and then come back. We'll wait.
Yes, get the fuck out. Go watch it, please.
Yeah, because we are going to talk about everything, obviously. So, yeah.
All right, now that you're back, we can get into some spoilers.
They all die. They're all gone.
Oh, no! Not all, but most.
All right, everyone give your best Arcane impression.
Oh, we should pick a favorite line or something. Mine wouldn't be a favorite line. It would be that face that Vi gave to the one guy with the glare when she pointed at her glare.
This will always mean shut up.
It was so good.
Oh,
a good line.
Oh God, I wasn't thinking along those lines. I don't have a favorite line. I loved the opening scene or sequence of the first episode. Might be my second favorite moment of the entire show.
Shit.
Yeah, I don't really. I mean, we can talk about that more, but it was just. It just sets the tone so perfectly, right? It's just strap in, motherfucker. This is not ruination, right? This is serious, and we're gonna take it seriously.
Video games have come a long way since Pac-Man.
Excuse me.
That's what I expect the news coverage for this show to be like.
Oh my God, it probably would be.
Oh man.
When I played Pong.
But yeah, it's got all those red tones, and it's all dark, and it's got that gothic deco gothic architecture. It made me think of Batman the Animated Series, which is I also love that, right? And it's Anyway. I
think my favorite line was probably Victor's. Oh, this is not my bedroom.
Oh my God. That was so funny to me. A lot of people were talking about that on Twitter, was the idea that Victor's lie was, no, I'm sneaking this man into my room in the middle of the night. That's what his lie was. And Riot, that's why everyone's shipping Victor and Jace, by the way. They keep trying to play it off hey, they're bros. And we're all no. You can't just have these lines in there and say that they're bros.
Mm-hmm. Well, they knew what they were doing. They knew they absolutely knew what that was going to fucking do.
They gave them matching outfits too as soon as they became friendos.
I can't believe this made me like Jace.
Yeah.
Not that I hated him before, but
yeah, no, I mean, I guess we can talk about it a bit, but this definitely seems like old lore Jace. Did anyone else kind of get that vibe? The more charismatic and, I mean, less of a dick.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I was laughing so much in watching this because, I'm really glad we did all that Jace episode because I don't think any of that shit's going to stick around.
I'm actually kind of curious what the time jump is going to be like because I would say that Jace, yes, he's very smart, he's very charismatic. I wouldn't say that he wins everyone over though, which is kind of what his old lore was like. And I'm thinking, Act 2 is probably going to be a big time jump, we're assuming. And I think Jace being a discoverer of hex tech, he might turn into more of what we know from Jace. I don't know if he's going to, but...
Well, and also, when he inevitably loses Victor, then he'll never love again, and then we'll get the embittered, angry Jace.
I mean, I think you're absolutely right? This Act 1 is so much about Vi and Jinx, right? And the Victor, Jace, and that whole relationship is that's at the outset, and everything's so nice at the start. But, I mean, I guess for the purposes of this, do we want to talk also about, because they did the little Act 2 teaser, right?
I did not watch it.
Okay, we don't need to talk about it. I can leave it unspoiled.
It's okay.
No, it's fine. I think it's fine. We'll handle it as we actually get the content, right?
Okay.
But I think that's a good prediction in general. Is that things are only going to descend from here, right?
Now, real quick too, before we get into the actual episodes, I did want to just kind of touch on a few points about the pre-show, because I did watch that. I know that my co-hosts did not.
I had it open, but I think I was watching another stream at the same time or something.
You had it open for the rewards.
I had it open for the awards 100%, which I got within 5 minutes, but I kept it open after that.
And I kept messaging you with things that were happening in real time, and you didn't see them until after the event was over, so I'm sure none of my notes made sense.
No, they didn't.
It's can you believe this? Oh my god, look at that. I didn't realize you weren't seeing them.
John was I don't know, talking about their outfits. It was adorable. You were as invested in this as people get invested in the fucking Oscars, as they talk about, what are you wearing?
I mean, it was
pulling little Joan Rivers.
Yeah. So I'll get into it a little bit.
Put John on the red carpet.
I'll do pre-show.
Next premiere.
So first thing that was amazing about the pre-show, the whole thing took place on the Riot campus, which obviously, made me feel super nostalgic because, I see a lot of things that from the campus that I used to work at, and it was very cool, but it had been done up straight up Hollywood. It looked so fucking cool there. They turned the basketball court into this giant movie theater with a dome screen. The whole place was decked out. It looked great. Also, you'd randomly see a mix of legitimate celebrities, who is it? Mike Shinoda was there.
I don't know who
Linkin Park frontman.
Oh, okay. I'm not going to know people's names. I'm very bad at actor names.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same.
Thank you.
And they obviously had the voice actors there too, and they got legitimate voice actors for. They always get legitimate voice actors, but they had a lot of things that we've actually seen in other things fairly recently as some of the voice actors. So, it was exciting to see them just kind of on the Riot campus too. And then it was just cool to see, maybe not celebrities, but personal heroes of mine show up. Brennan Lee Mulligan fucking showed up from College Humor, and I could not believe that he was there. I saw him walk behind an interview I was watching. I was like, oh my god, is that fucking Brennan? It wasn't just Brennan. It was a bunch of the people from College Humor, and I think more specifically their D&D campaigns. But that was super cool to see that he was there. That was awesome. But yeah, it was very surreal to see, and especially when they did the interviews with Christian Link, who, if you don't know, Christian Link, he started the music department. He was the music person, and then he built the music team from the ground up. And
he sings the Amumu song.
He sings the Amumu song. He's got a great voice. He was, speaking of Linkin Park, he was kind of in the German pop version of Linkin Park in Germany before he came to Riot. And then when he came to Riot, he started out in player support with me. He was one of the people who interviewed me. He sat right next to me in the closet that we were originally put in before we got our own campus. He's a super cool guy, and it was just so great seeing him here now as kind of the creative lead of this entire project. It was very awesome.
Yeah.
And seeing Alex Yee there too. I had originally applied for the creative team when I was at Riot, and it was kind of the first thing I applied to after I got there. And Alex Yee was one of the people who interviewed me, and I kind of kept up to date on all his work too. So again, very cool seeing this project that they've been working so hard on, and seeing this really cool event that they had planned for it.
Yeah, I will say, not from the pre-show, but just the credits, right? Seeing Christian Link, executive producer, is what it is fucking wild. I didn't sit next to him obviously, but it was still crazy just you'd see him around, and very talking about from the ground up, right? Coming in at player sport and to end up there with this thing, it's massively impressive, and all credit to him and his team and everyone who's worked on this fucking thing, because this shit reeks of quality, man, through and through. So. Yeah,
they talked about how this has been 6 years in the making, and has this been working on when you guys were there?
Yeah, they were talking about this back even in Punta Cana days, I think.
Yes, I feel I remember just little nuggets that they would give people outside of the project, and I feel did we know it was going to be about Vi and Jinx? I feel like we knew that there was some kind of story. I don't know if I'm making this up or not.
I don't think we knew about Vi and Jinx when we still worked there. I think we got a couple things simultaneously. Like they dropped the whole like Jinx character or Vi character study, rather, like the short cinematic with her gloves at the same time as we learned that there was going to be a TV show.
Okay.
I don't think they had connected those two yet at the point.
All right.
Yeah, for sure, right. I think, you saw a lot of the beginnings of it when they talked about that Riot guess what I've been working on lately, the Riot animation kind of workshop, right, and how they were. I can only guess that some of that, a good chunk of that 6 years is part of that, right, just trying to build out that pipeline, because I remember that was a big goal. It's like, we want to be able to do this, but obviously we can't do 6 years for every season. If we can, hopefully we get more seasons. So the idea is to create something that you put a lot of work in at the start, and then going forward, you've got a really refined and honed process for getting these things created at a very high quality bar. So,
yeah. Well, I'm excited because there are things that have been in the game for years that I'm sure you'll talk about in your theories, I think are hinting at canon in Arcane, which is really fascinating to me. But do we want to go episode by episode? Is that what we were thinking?
I kind of have my notes structured like that.
Okay, we've just been like gushing, which I thought that this was kind of what it was going to be, was just us talking about what we liked about it. But we can go episode by episode if y'all want.
Sure. And super quick, just three notes too from and also from the red carpet event. If you do happen to find a VOD, look out for a few things.
Okay.
One, Alex Yee's awesome suit. It was very cool. He had like a Two-Face outfit, basically. Except it was like a very classy, chic Two-Face outfit. It was like half the suit was one color, half the suit was, it was very cool, and he pulled it off. Also, if you watch the Haley Steinfeld and Ella interview, they're the voice actresses for Jinx and Vi. There's some fucking dude in the background of the entire interview just always staring straight at the camera. He's like some random ass dude staring straight at the camera, moving in case any of the voice actors accidentally move in front of him. He readjusts so that he's still in frame looking at the camera, and no one ever came to pick him up through the entirety of the interview.
This is the riveting content you all came to the Arcane episode for.
Just trust me. Find the replay and watch it. It's fucking hilarious. Also, just something I didn't know. The voice of Vander is also the voice of Braum.
I saw that. I was, because, I mean, all the performances I fucking loved. And so I was just looking up who people were. And I was like, man, what have these people worked on before? I was like, holy shit, look at that.
Yeah, very cool. And then also, if you get a chance, try and watch the advertisement in Dubai.
I think that was all over Twitter.
Yeah, because that video is fucking cool as hell. They turned an entire skyscraper into a massive screen that was doing like a countdown for the show, and it was very cool.
It's like the Burj Khalifa, right? Or Khalifa, right? That's like the biggest building in the world, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, those are all my pre-show notes. Now on to the actual show. What y'all think?
Well, I think we all agree that we all like all the episodes.
Yeah.
Yes, they were all great.
I mean, like I already talked about, the opening is an extremely strong opening. Very clear in setting the tone. Very strong storytelling through essentially no dialogue, right? The only thing you have is Jinx or Powder. I'm just going to call her Jinx if that's cool with y'all. Singing this song, right? The lyrics of the song themselves already kind of talking about the nature of the relationship between, I guess, Zon or Proto-Zon. I'm not quite sure exactly what's going on with it, or the Undercity and Piltover, right? And I love that scene playing over the scene. I love that it started with very explicit, violence, like not gory, but just saying, well, here's someone getting executed, right? This is the tone. Buckle up, Homestuck. Exactly, right? And then drawing it down to showing that it's from what we know is, like, let's say we don't know anything about League, we can still see that it's a little girl who is essentially a little girl who has been told to, cover her eyes as she's being walked through a battlefield and is seeing to not hear what's happening. And it's very like, okay, I loved it. It's exactly what I wanted from this.
Yeah, I really liked that reveal that the singing that you're hearing is Jinx singing, and I'm assuming Vi told her to do that so she doesn't see the bodies around her. And it's really because this whole story is going to revolve around Jinx and her like mental health and problems that she has, and it's all starting in like these few seconds.
Sure.
It was really, really well done. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that there's a little detail in that, because something we've seen maybe from some promotional materials especially is that as Jinx starts to really become Jinx as we know her, there's like those graphical sort of effects of like scratches, kind of drawings being laid over things, and that pops up here in this little bit where she, you know, seeing the Enforcer, it starts to throw a monster face just in him, like a little X every now and then on someone's eyes or something. It's just a really clear, nice way of saying, hey, here's the little seeds, here's the little foreshadowing and groundwork. You know, we're paying attention, right?
Yeah, it was very cool. And then immediately after this scene, we see the youth climbing up what I really thought was going to be Old Howe. Initially, I was like, "Oh, do we get to see it?" Yeah,
like Old Hungry or whatever. I was certain that's what it was. I was a little disappointed.
Yeah, the Howler's the elevator, right? Is it Old Hungry?
The Descender,
we immediately when we saw them climbing it, we were like, "Oh, were they climbing the thing?" And then they weren't.
Yeah, I almost wish someone had mentioned that, because I would have loved that, but still.
Yeah, it was so good. I love this sequence too, because you're seeing the dynamic of the kids so quickly, and it's really important for these 3 episodes. Their relationships with each other is like gonna not even set the ground, it's gonna put into motion what happens. And yeah, doing that, they did it in a very creative way, having them hop between these buildings and seeing who they all were as they did it.
Yeah. I mean, they don't waste time in this show at all, generally speaking. Everything is always very, like, the pace is always moving. Anything that's happening on screen is not wasting time or filling time, and it's always informing things, and whether that's through actual dialogue and exposition or just through action. You know, it feels very purposeful, and I think that's very strong, and I was really liking it.
And like, despite that, like, it never felt rushed either. And like, during times where it would make sense for them to like take a beat and like let something breathe, like they always did, and I liked that a lot too. So like, every second was well utilized.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I mean, talking about the heist more, I like that they establish Milo as having having lock picking ability. It's a fun way to kind of undercut it, where Vi, you know, kicks the door in, but then it also sets it up for later on when it's actually useful. And it's nice. It's like, hey, again, we're paying attention. We've got this all really tightly written, right? We know what we're doing. You know, I love that.
And including the cupcakes on Caitlin's windowsill.
I was so excited.
Yeah.
When I saw the
cupcakes. There's also that very nice. They have kind of a mirror in the very beginning when Jinx doesn't quite make the jump and is going to fall off the roof, and you kind of see her falling flat, but then Vi reaches out and catches her. Like the whole like position she was in was, you know, very kind of like a mirror to later in, you know, episode 3, where she's also falling and there's no one there to catch her, and she's just kind of having that straight free fall. But that's a nice, very early setup.
Yeah, I didn't catch that at all, but you're absolutely right. That is a great. It's great. You're right. They're paying attention. There's a shot so they're in there, right? And she's got the Hextech crystal, and she's looking at it, and it shows her reflection in all the little different shards, right? And I know that's a piece of imagery that they're really going for with her, you know, her mentality being kind of broken. I was like, there it is again. There it is. There's the crystal, and it's gonna fuck her up, and it's showing you just this little beat, right? It's like, someone. I love it. I love it. Someone is absolutely paying attention to what's happening on screen all the time, and every scene is important, right? Is the feeling I get when I watch this.
Yeah, I love. Did you have this moment too, Mark, where you were like, throughout the whole 3 episodes trying to guess everything? Like, they're in this office and we're like, okay, whose office is this? Could be Jace. Could be Victor's office. Could be Heimerdinger's office.
Yes,
the thing that threw us off the most, honestly, was after she opened the box and there were all those crystals. We're like, oh, this can't be Jace's fucking office. He got like 1 crystal to experiment on. That's not him.
But 5 in there.
Yeah, I was constantly, you know, like a hawk, just looking around the screen. And also, I mean, and to be fair, Riot knew people were going to be doing that. And I love all the visual sort of Easter eggs they've constantly kind of peppered in, and it doesn't feel overwhelming. It's just very nice to, like, every now and then, like, oh, look, there's Teemo on an arcade, you know, there's a Jin mask, you know, just little things, right?
Oh, I didn't even see the Jin mask.
Oh, yeah. And there it was like right next to what was it? Landry's Anguish mask too.
Maybe.
Oh, was it?
I'd have to relook at it because I got
man.
distracted. But yes, absolutely. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how you want to kind of dig into it. I'm just kind of like thinking through the things sequentially in my
John's
head.
got little notes. I'd say if you have any notes on episode 1, we can just kind of dump them as we go. You know.
Yeah.
So I mean, I do have a kind of a note about the chase scene. I mean, so right off the bat too, one thing that I really liked about this is that, you know, they've got a big guy on the team.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of shows like this, it would be very easy for that big guy to be like the comedic relief who like can't quite do all the other things that everyone else is doing. He like falls behind when everyone's running away. But fucking Clagor is a beast. He's like swinging from the rooftops, jumping.
Yeah.
He's running just as fast as everyone else in the group. And when it comes down to fighting, he's 2v1ing them like no fucking problem. Like
Yeah, I love
Clagor's
him.
a goddamn tank.
Absolutely,
pure.
he's the top lane that we deserve, right? But not the one we need.
The top lane I
He's the
never
other
get.
top lane.
I mean,
team
Other
top
team's top
laner.
laner.
I know, but yes, absolutely, I completely agree. In that, like, I love the action sequences, like in terms of the chase, kinetic, you know, frantic, tons of energy in it, dynamic, and then it gets into those fight sequences, and they're heavy. Right, the impact lands. I do love. He's 2v1ing, and he's like he puts out like his foot, and one guy runs into it, and it's like someone knew that when you're big and someone's small, you don't move. They just fucking get hit in the chest and collapse around it. I like as well that Jinx is not sure if she can make it, and so Clagor's like, "Oh, I'll go get her." Right, and then later on when they're kind of, I don't know what you described, they're kind of hooking down into the actual balcony. He's helping Powder again, and it doesn't like really draw attention to it. It's just like very obvious that he's a little bit more, you know, he gives her more benefit of the doubt than say Milo, right?
Milo,
Yeah. Also, can I just say that Clagor picking up that one dude and just fucking slamming him into the ground was the most satisfying thing.
These are children, and this is what it's like for Zon children, which we get from we always knew that from the lore. We've loved the Zon children. We've talked about that before, and they have very, very brutal lives, and you really see it here. Like, they do not shy away. Vi just gets punched in the face by a fucking dude just like immediately, and she fights back, and this is just what it's like to live there.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if this was intentional or if this was used as reference for the body slam, by the way, but do you remember that like old ass YouTube video where that guy was being picked on in school?
Yes.
And he just fucking picks the kid up and does exactly what
He's like
Clagor
2
did.
times
I'm
the
like,
size of the kid.
Yeah. I'm really curious if that was used as a reference because it was spot on.
I'm gonna have to go watch it again.
I know, someone put those side by side in a GIF or something.
I'll have to check it out.
Great.
But yeah, I don't know, man. There's a lot here that I really like. I like when Jinx gets kind of separated and is running away. She kind of fragged that kid. She's putting nails in that bomb.
Oh my gosh, she was gonna fuck him up, which is a foreshadowing for what she does later. Like, she is not afraid to hurt someone.
Yeah.
She's afraid in a lot of ways, and her experiments don't always work, but she's not afraid to blow a bunch of fucking nails in some kid's face. Like, she's ready to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and again, that's like you said, that's childhood in Zon, baby. You know, you never know, you get a knife pulled on you, you get blown away, like, you know, makeshift claymore. Who knows, right? You know, it's rough. I like that she names her things too. Nice detail again, right?
So
like,
cute.
Great. You know.
It's very sad seeing how excited she got about a sandwich in the.
Oh my
yeah.
god,
More
that's
so than
so
the treasure.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were excited to find food.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Jace just fucking left there. You privileged motherfucker. Just leaving fresh, perfect sandwiches around in your office.
It's also good foreshadowing that he was gonna be right back.
That's true.
Honestly.
I was like, who just leaves a sandwich there? And John's like, someone who's not going to be gone very long.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, Jinx probably should have noticed. But.
Man.
Yeah, and I like during that scene too where they mentioned about getting the tip from like Little Man, and like in my head I thought it was, you know, like any sort of like street moniker, maybe it was like ironic or some shit like that, and it was, when we saw what's his name, Benzo, for the first time, I was like, all right, that's probably Little Man. Especially when they were like, oh, Little Man did it, I'm gonna go to Benzo's shot. I assumed that was Little Man, and then you see Echo and you hear Quagmire call him Little Man. I was like, oh.
The sound that came out of my body when we saw Little Echo, like, I'll never be able to recreate. I had no idea that baby Echo was in this. And he's perfect and precious, and I love him.
It's probably what I sounded like when I saw Heimer in the trailer talking his shit.
Oh,
I think I said, like, oh my God.
And can I appreciate, Heimer's in it way more than expected already. Even if he has this small of a role in Acts 2 and 3, I hope he's still in it. It's still more than I thought he was going to have. I really love that. I think that's hard to incorporate a character like Heimerdinger. His name's Heimerdinger, first of all. I was talking to John when we watched it, because the very first time you hear his name, they say Professor Heimerdinger, and I'm like, can you imagine if you know nothing about League and you just heard the words Professor Heimerdinger the first time in your life?
And then you see someone's little head pop out, and then the weight of the head pulls his body into frame.
That's a gif already too, and it's perfect, and I love it. But yeah, I think that having him be a little bit more serious, because he has some darkness. He's been alive a long time. He's seen some shit, and he's not afraid to tell you about it, and it works.
Yeah, for sure. I know we're dipping into episode 2 when we get into the Heimer talk, but
I
was pleased to see him in the intro, the opening title sequence too. So I knew he was going to be around.
Hell yeah. So I mean, to avoid jumping ahead, let's talk about the other most important Yordle from the first episode, Sexy Yordle.
The Portal.
That one sexy with the makeup Yordle. Does she have a name? I
don't think so.
The internet gave her a name.
Oh, what do they call her? Honey, why are you looking at me like that?
I thought I already said it. Is it Hordle? Is that what you're...
Oh my God! Internet!
I didn't make it up.
But if you've seen Gremlins 2... This is
literally, please Google Gremlins 2 girl
Sexy
gremlin or
sexy
you don't have to say
gremlin.
sexy gremlin. You're gonna get a very different.
You are, and you're not gonna.
No.
You're not gonna regret it.
No, you're gonna get a different image. You're not actually gonna get the girl gremlin from Gremlins 2. Yeah. That was very reminiscent. Love her though.
Yeah.
She's really living her best life.
That whole little sequence is a lot of fun. Of like the quickest little slice of Zon. Here it is. Here's what it's like. Here's a Krug. Just little things, right? It's like, I love it. You know what I like about that too is it goes into that scientist kind of guy. I assume scientist, maybe he's a traitor, having that kind of dispute with those other two, right? And they're very they're shortchanging him, and they're very threats and intimidating and threats of violence. And I think normally you would expect that to be just showing like it's rough here, right? These guys are hardcore and rough, and then these two are going to be real badasses. And then Vander comes in and sticks up for the scientist or whatever he was. And I was like, I love that, right? It's that I like that more than just being like, oh, these guys are super tough because they can intimidate this little weakling guy. Like, no, nice.
Yeah, it was a nice touch. And I mean, another hopefully foreshadowing thing in that scene, Vander, referred to as the Hound of the Underground.
Yeah.
Yes, I think Twitter has already kind of deduced who Vander becomes, and I'm sure Mark already has his idea of where Vander is going. I had no idea.
Yeah, I mean, should we say it?
Yeah, we can talk about it. Yeah,
Warwick, right?
Warwick. I had no idea. I really didn't know Warwick's quotes. I didn't know his backstory. So John told me some of the quotes he has in game that are tied to Vi and Jinx, which is buck wild to me that this shit was planted, because Warwick's his rework was years ago.
It was a while ago.
So that's very exciting.
Yes, I don't know. Just talking about general predictions, I don't know if Vander's ever going to show up again as Warwick. I think maybe not. Like, we will maybe get the slightest kind of tease or hint, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
Because I can't see a Wolfman running around here. But
I can. I think they can make it work. I think if they can make Heimerdinger work in this setting, that they could make Warwick work in this setting.
Well, I mean, if we're being honest too, and this is also skipping ahead a little bit, but that first scene where Eckerd took the potion and then, murked fucking Benzos, like that shot was like straight out of the Warwick trailer, where there's just like this person there, and then a flash passes by the screen, and then the person's gone. Like,
interesting.
So I mean, he could fit in that way. I think you're right, though, Mark. Like, I don't think we're gonna see him. I think the best we're gonna get is a confirmation that Vander somehow made it out, or like they took his body or something like that. My guess is that's all we're gonna see.
Will be a post-credit scene, and you'll kind of see Singe more. I didn't know that. Did that guy get called Singe, by the way?
He's credited as it.
He's credited.
I watched again his subtitles, and in the subtitles he's referred to as Singed.
Okay,
and plus he gets blown up, so he's quite literally singed. So.
I'll say this. I do think you're both right. I think maybe it'll be like a post-credits kind of scene kind of thing if they ever hint at Warwick. But I also think there's a very real possibility that they've been like genuinely hiding a lot of the big shit that they want to happen later, and Warwick could just kind of blast through and end up being a massive part of the story in like Act 3 or something. I would love that too.
Don't get me wrong,
because they have been misdirecting with the trailers a lot. So
there's already scenes that were in the trailers that didn't end up in Act 1, like scenes when they were kids, I'm pretty sure. So yeah.
Let's see.
One tiny thing that I feel like it wasn't talked about a whole lot. For the most part, this whole series is very friendly for people who know nothing about League of Legends. They do a really good job at introducing the world and the characters in a way where you don't need prior knowledge. The one thing that I think is probably going to be confusing, and it was actually, I feel like, if I remember correctly, it was a little confusing for you too, like when Jinx throws all of the stuff off of the pier.
Yes.
Like, I imagine there's going to be a lot of questions about, like, okay, it's
just
in
go
the water
get it
now. Just fucking go get it.
Yeah.
There's a bit with the enforcers always wear masks when they're in Zon, but no one ever really talks about it. And I think probably all you'd need is a throwaway line in there about the toxicity of everything in Zon to kind of explain it to people who don't know anything about it. But I think it maybe could have used something like that.
I agree. I think the breathers are a really nice touch at world building, but I do agree that it needs something to help establish it a little more. Or if nothing else, it kind of feels like when she throws it in there, and there's even like a lingering shot on it, as though that's going to be a plot point or something that will come up later. And maybe it will, but for it to not get mentioned at all and kind of treat it as if, no, it's gone. Something to help establish it a bit more. I think it does. It could even just be the case that it's just sunk and we can't go get it because we're not able to, right? Like, I couldn't go down to the bottom and go get some shit, but if it's for the toxins, then I mean, I know they kind of get into that a little with Silco's monologue talking about the toxins seeping in, but that's so far removed from that scene that anyone who can care.
It's like years later, it feels like when he's talking about that.
I'm also really, and this came up in the chase scene too, and in various other scenes. I don't know enough about animation to know if they did do this, but I'm really curious if they did something with Jinx similar to what they did with Enter the Spider-Verse, where she was animated at a different frame rate than Vi, because everything she does looks very clumsy, even if she's not. I wouldn't be able to point at it and be like, oh, this is something specific she's doing that's clumsy. But like all of Vi's movement seems so smooth compared to her. So I'm really curious if she was animated at a slower frame rate or something.
Interesting. That'd be a really neat way to try and do that. I mean, the whole thing, it looks fucking amazing, right? I don't think there's anyone who I would be hard pressed to find complaints about the looks. And they've really done an amazing job with all of it. So if that's something that they did for Spider-Man, then maybe that's something that they use here, because there's some similarities visually between those two, more than anything, right?
I will have one complaint about the animation.
Go for it.
And it's the 2 strands of hair on Vi's face. I don't understand why they're there. Why are they? I was so distracted by the 2 strands of hair on her face.
It was odd. And they were so persistently there that I really thought that they were a scar, and I had to rewatch, and then I saw like the shadow they were casting on her face, and they're definitely strands of hair. It was weird.
But I mean, that's really my only complaint about Arcane, is that there's 2 strands of hair on Vi's face that I don't like.
I also have one complaint about episode 1.
Yeah, go for it.
And this is like, all right, again, I know nothing about animation or storytelling or editing, so my opinion on this isn't worth a whole lot, but I'm going to give it anyway, because that's what I do.
That's what we all do.
I feel like it should have been recut, so Silco's scene with the rat was before Jinx and Vi's scene on the roof. Jinx and Vi's scene on the roof, where it pans out to all of Zon, and it's like they'll recognize, or they'll, acknowledge us someday, was such a fucking good place to end that episode. Them having another tiny little scene after it really threw me out of it.
Huh.
It was like if you took like a Marvel movie and you took the post-credit scene, and instead of doing it after the actual conclusion of the movie and after the credits started, you like ended the movie and immediately just showed that scene, and that's the scene that you end on. It was like, it took so much impact out of like the final bit of that episode for me.
Interesting. I mean, I guess it's interesting you say that, because as you were talking about it, I almost had the order flipped in my head, and maybe that just speaks to how strong of an ending scene that is. And my brain was like, don't worry, we'll just flip those two, and there you go, no problem. So, maybe I could see that for sure.
We thought it was going to end there. We were like, all ready to go to the next episode, and then it kept going. We're like, okay.
Yeah.
I guess we're not done.
Yeah, I could see that. That makes I get that for sure. I guess if we're just dropping complaints, I suppose, this isn't so much a complaint. I'm curious just to see what happens, because one thing I remember saying to Sarah as we were entering the third episode is like, no one said Zon at all. They've said Piltover a few times. No one said Zon.
Undercity.
They
no
keep
one
saying
does say
Undercity,
Zon.
and they keep talking about the lanes, but they don't say Zon. And the other thing I noticed is that they spend a lot of time.
Once.
Yes, once at the very, like in the third episode, right? But they don't.
Okay.
But they also spend a lot of time. Even our Zon children spend a lot of time underneath the actual sky, right? It's not really a big deal for them to, speaking of that end shot, to get up above at the top of the city and look out over it. Whereas the sense I got from things we've read so far is that that's more of an endeavor. You can't just be like, oh, I'll cheer Powder up, I'll take her up top. It's like, no, you're lucky if you can even get above the gray. So, that and the bridge, right? And it seems like they're trying to I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe the time skip will help address some of that, and help give us some more of the sense of the true geometry of the two cities. But it feels less vertical than I kind of had always kind of pictured them, in more one side of the river and the other, right? Even like almost everything that happens aside from sequences down in like the last drop or Benzo's shop, happen essentially on the surface level, right? So it's always a little weird where they talk about like, topsiders in the Undercity, when it feels like they're mostly also on top. But I don't know if that's...
I would have a hard time visualizing it if I didn't already understand a lot about Piltover and Zon. Like, if I were just an outsider watching this, I'd be like, what are they under? Like, they're kind of next to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do get that great establishing shot early on after they finish the chase, and they're going down in Zon. But, like, yeah, in terms of, like, lighting and things like that, you always do feel like the sun's kind of there most of the time.
Yeah. So I don't know. I almost wonder if some of that's just maybe we need to, like you're saying, they really want to make this accessible, right? And trying to get into just explaining the setup of Zon and Piltover as we know it is maybe too much, right? And it's like it's easier to grapple the idea of one side of the river and the other. And after the time skip and everyone's kind of, okay, I'm hooked into the world, we can get into that a bit more and help better explain maybe that's what's going on. I just really hope we don't lose that verticality, because it's such a strong, it's so strong, right? It's like, so we'll see, I suppose.
It's a big part of that oppression. Like, it's not just financial oppression. There's like a lot of different types of oppression that the Zonites have at the hand of Piltover. You don't want to lose that.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the only thing. It felt weird kind of throughout a little bit of it, but it was very quickly quieted in the back of my mind, because everything else execution-wise is so strong. And the only other thing I like about episode 1, I'll say, that I want to call out, is that little sequence where Milo and Vi are kind of talking about Powder, and she overhears Vi, essentially assumedly talking shit about her, but actually she's sticking up for her. And I was like, that's a little shitty. But then she immediately goes and talks to her. And they clear up any sort of that. And I was like, oh, that's nice. That this doesn't rely on she just happened to leave right before her sister stuck up for her. Because, like, no, they went and bonded again. And it's like, great.
Yeah, it could have gone bad.
Yeah, right. And that would have felt like trite almost. Whereas instead, they're separated for much more significant reasons, right? So
I guess like we talked about in the Jace episode, where a lot of that is just two people not communicating with each other.
Yes.
It's,
It's never fun.
This one, yeah, they talk.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Episode
2.
I love how this one opens up with Caitlin so impressed that Jace braved the Undercity for that equipment. And Jace is also trying to play it so cool, like, oh, it's worth a little bit of danger, while also being like really clearly pleased with himself. But meanwhile, immediately when he stepped foot in the lane, they picked him up as a mark. Yeah. And then he got basically swindled in his interaction, and also Echo followed it home, and then he got robbed. Like,
yeah, he went into the front door.
So good. I did not expect the kind of big brother little sister Jace Caitlin relationship. It's pretty cute, their little friendship.
Yeah, I'd like to see more of it. I'm curious to see how it continues in the next act, because I did like it. It's neat to see Caitlin, but it's not the most. It's just kind of there a couple times, and I would like to see it get more.
Yeah.
For sure.
I'm curious if it'll carry over as she grows up. I'm also just curious to see adult Caitlin, because she's so prim and proper, but she considers herself kind of a misfit in her world. Where it's like, come on, like you're not that.
Yeah,
sometimes I don't even wear a skirt.
Pantyhose, I would never. I'm too much of a misfit.
I wear the slightly bigger hat.
Wait till you meet your wife, Caitlin.
At the beginning of this episode, too, there's also that interaction with Jace and his mother and the mage. And I don't think we have any... I think, there's a bunch of theories abound. I don't think that anyone's landed on anything quite yet that I seem really compelled by, but I am really curious who this mage was. That 1 is chilling in the Freljord, 2 uses a staff, 3 has teleportation magic, and 4 channels crystals for their magic, as opposed to it just being inherent. Like, it's a weird combination of, like, parts of it are familiar to things that we know, but then parts of it aren't. Like, obviously Rise has teleportation magic. The visual along with the teleportation magic was way more Aurelion Sol, though. In fact, it almost seemed directly pulled from Aurelion Sol's like login screen. So I have my own theory that I'd like to throw in the ring here.
Please do. You think it's Aurelion Sol?
Who else do we know that teleports long distances very quickly at the drop of a hat?
Twisted Fate.
Close. Rookie from the Rise of the Sentinels.
No, John!
I think that this mage, the original...
Get out!
You son of a bitch. You motherfucker.
How dare you remind me of that?
We don't say that fucking word when we talk about Arcane.
Speaking of Rise of the Sentinels, real quick, Senna got done so dirty after watching Arcane. Like, I'm just so... I mean, obviously this is 6 years in the making. They can't do that with every event. But, like, Senna deserved better than this. And Lucian and Viego, their whole story, like, goddamn.
So part of... And I was thinking about that today, actually. As I was looking at all of the things, when I knew... we knew Arcane was coming out. All I knew, or all I thought that this event was going to be, was Arcane. That was it. I had no idea that there was going to be another visual novel with like hours of content that spanned all of the Riot properties. I didn't realize that there was going to be a new Legends of Runeterra mode that was like heavily story based with its own story mode too. I mean, I didn't realize that there was going to be other games coming out kind of at the same time too. Like, this event was way fucking bigger than I was expecting. And I think, like, obviously you can say, like, time management, this was managed poorly with both these events happening the same year potentially, but I cannot even imagine trying to plan 2 events of like this magnitude in the same year. Like, normally like one of these events in a year is like, we're lucky we got the one. So like seeing how much they're putting into Arcane, a lot of maybe the missteps of the Rise of the Sentinels makes more sense to me. Obviously, there were still a lot of decisions outside of time management that sucked, but I feel like I'm more understanding about some of the missteps now, knowing how much went into this. Interesting.
It's an interesting idea. Like, maybe, I don't want to say B team per se, but just people who may have been able to offer more, like a more veteran or skilled perspective on some of these like story type things. things that we had a lot of problems with, maybe we're just dedicated to other projects, right? And not through like a problem on Riot side, but just a known, like, we're going to invest more of our resources in this particular product than this other one. Is that, am I understanding correct?
Potentially, yeah. And knowing, I was talking to Rebecca about this, but if you watch the interviews with Brandon and Mark, you've seen Brandon talk in front of groups before and do interviews. Like, he's cool as hell, right?
Yeah, like,
I have never seen that man so fucking nervous. He was being interviewed by Riv, and he was stammering through answers.
Holy shit.
Like, this, I think that there was way more riding on this for them than I initially thought. Like,
yeah.
I think this was huge for them. So, like, in terms of prioritizing one of these over the other, even though, the events, like the graphic or the visual novel for this, like, they're not canon or anything like that. Like, prioritizing this over the Rise of the Sentinels event, which was mainly lore, mostly marketing, like, yeah, I can see that decision. I think the timing of it sucks that they were both on the same year and the lore event got deprioritized. But yeah, I think that's what happened. I think they had divested everything to this.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Remember Ruin King was supposed to have released last year, and maybe that was the plan. The rollout plan was to have all that out before 2021 even started, right? And lo and behold, obviously things happened, and now they were kind of stuck in an unenviable position, right? But that seems like they made the right choice. And yeah, I gotta go check out that interview. That's what I want to see, because I'm sure this is a you talk about Worlds 2021. This is make or break right here with this, right? And I think that's why they're going so wide with the marketing and everything. It's like, this is the chance to really become Riot Entertainment, right? Not just Riot Games. Yeah. So talking about episode 2, I guess we'll try and reel it back a little. I kind of mentioned it at the start, but like, this, I feel like Jace is almost a new character from a lot of the bio and lore that we've read. So I'm really curious to see how he develops compared to how we know him, I guess, because so much of this is just establishing. Right. This episode to me felt, this obviously has maybe the most exposition happening around just getting everyone on board with here's magic and how it sits in this world, right? Still, pretty quick and effective, but we don't. I feel like we're not. What am I trying to say? Jace is still. Everything's still in this kind of infancy with him and Victor, right? And I think Act 2 is when they're maybe going to get a little bit more, and we'll be able to see a lot more of what's going on with them as characters. Because a lot of this here is pretty straightforward, at least in terms of how Jace is depicted. He's an ambitious, science guy, and he bucks the system a little, but not anything that's like nearly as deep as what we get for Vi and Jinx and even Vander, I would say.
Right. And this episode actually also answers a question that we had going into this about Heimerdinger, because we were kind of unsure at the beginning whether he was using a glamour, but like we as the audience maybe couldn't see it because we saw what the comic looked like, because he's horrifying using a glamour, and they don't want the audience to have to see that. But him talking to Jason saying like, oh yeah, I'm 307 years old, kind of confirmed that like, oh, he's probably not using the glamour. It's probably just him.
Yes.
And they're cool with Yordles.
I am curious how they're going to backtrack on this, because they're saying that this is canon. Yeah.
So what I'm curious about is if they're not going to backtrack, if something along the line, like something in maybe this show in the next 6 episodes is going to happen that is going to cause this fear that necessitates that meeting.
Okay.
Now that's interesting. I had just assumed, like you, Rebecca, that they were just going to say, hey, that glamour thing, it's a little more fluid, right? And maybe you could try and chalk that up to, Piltover, relatively progressive as far as Runeterra goes, and maybe they're cool. They're just cool with Yordles, right? Whereas in, say, Bilgewater, or, where Kled is at, they still use glamours. But John, I like where your fucking head's at on that one, because yeah, obviously
that's more interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And that would tie more into what's actively happening in the show, and it'd be a neat way to see this thing that we know develop in a way that we can kind of come to grips with, and it's like, oh, okay, that's why glamours happen, that's why Yordles are hunted, things like that. That'd be real neat for sure.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. Talking about Heimer as well. So, for starters, I love when can we assume he is talking about the Rune Wars when he is...
I think that's safe.
Yeah.
So what for starters, I love the Renaissance style that they did in showing that. It's so effective, I think, for someone who still doesn't, it's, again, someone who doesn't know League, giving that style immediately, like, there's a context to it. Like, okay, this is something that happened a long time ago, right? And even if you don't catch that he's 300 years old. And also about him being 300 years old, I really hope this means that they are condensing the timeline down a little. Where it's like, oh, the Rune Wars weren't like tens of thousands of years ago. It's like 300 years ago, or something that was just enough to kind of start leaving the cultural consciousness, where someone would be like, well, maybe we can do it right this time. It's like, instead of the first breath, like Jax doesn't need to be 4,000 years old, right? But like maybe 120, I could see that. Things like that.
Yeah.
I kind of hope that points to what might be happening. Maybe not.
Cool.
But,
Yeah, I like that idea a lot, because having the League lore span the way it does really disconnects you from it so much. And so kind of shoving it in this smaller time frame, I think, would be really, really smart. And then having a handful of things be like, a Mumu can be ancient. Yeah. He is from a completely different time, and that's okay. But do they all have to?
Yes, exactly. And then I guess also talking just again about Heimer's sort of all the discussion around magic. I liked that they brought this sort of fear and distrust of magic out of just Demacia, right? And it being something that occurs in other places. And it's like, it's nice. It's nice to not have Demacia be the one place. It's like an asshole over in the West, like, fucking Demacia. It's like, no, it makes sense. I'm really curious. Do we have any idea what's going on with that robot guy who talks about his race being almost extinguished by mages?
No, right?
I have a theory.
All right.
I've seen a few theories and I haven't liked most of them. Okay, but I have a theory.
It's not right. All right, then you may speak.
Okay, so other than obviously being, a Force-sensitive robot who's after General Kenobi.
God damn it, motherfucker.
I think it's possible he could be a Bakai.
Oh.
What is that?
Oh.
So the Bakai are they're essentially failed ascended. They're people who tried to go through the ascension but didn't quite succeed, so they didn't become super strong like, the Nasus or Renekton type. They got super long life still, but also like some sorts of like deformities to go along with it. Okay. And given how much Zahn was tied to Shurima, in the Ashra-Zahn days, and the fact that like if he was part of Shurima at the time, like, yeah, absolutely, magic destroyed all of his fucking people and his civilization, and it would make a lot of sense if he had some sort of deformity like that, why he's like, the thought is that maybe he's not a machine, maybe he's covered in metal.
Yeah.
That's kind of what hinges this theory on. If he's actually a robot, it probably doesn't carry water. But that's kind of like an exoskeleton he's wearing. That's my
massively augmented, right? Like not just a clockwork thing. I agree. I assume when you're talking about theories, people may be talking about something related to Oriana or Blitzcrank would be my guess, and I agree that that's not what we're doing here.
I've seen theories about him being the race from Ionia that we kind of see a little bit at the beginning when the kids are walking through the those
like really
and they see those really tall people with like the
masks.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem to really hold for me. He's not that tall. Those I think almost might be in reference to a specific Runeterra card, like Keeper of Masks, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just a little wink.
A mod.
Yeah. I would assume almost that this could easily be something that's just an entirely new thing that they've invented here, and we'll just see it play out. The Bakai theory is an interesting one, though. My only thing I don't know about is, because I know they've got some cards in Runeterra, I kind of assume they were all kind of insane and just horrendous bloodthirsty monsters as a part of the failed ascension process, but maybe not. Like, maybe there are people who managed to keep themselves. So we'll see.
It would make sense too as to why he was able to rise to prominence in Piltover too, because if that is true, he'd been there for a very, very long time, and all of the older families in Ashra-Zahn kind of rose to prominence and make the council now. So yeah,
we'll see. But it's interesting to see reference to some of what's going on with the Piltover politics, the Medarda clan showing up again, a mention of Clan Pharos, and the mention specifically talking about how they're kind of stagnant, much like what was going on when Steven was in charge. So I think Camille, obviously Camille is probably going to need some rewrites to get her aligned with what's happening here, we would assume. In addition to some like Jace's bio is going to definitely need updates. All those things are just out of date at this point, So maybe that was just like the slightest nod of like, hey, we're aware that we're changing things. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it, But
yeah.
Can we also appreciate for a minute how fucking dramatic those Piltover judgments are at the council?
God, we laughed.
Sarah was saying the same thing.
Hard.
All the lights turning off, and then as soon as the lights turned off, it's like, oh, single spotlight on Jace, and then boom.
It's so fucking funny, dude. The council ended up like, some of them were way more likable than I was expecting them to be. I don't know what it was. You just see a council with that dramatic of an entrance, and you assume that they're all dill holes. But I love Mel. I really want to see more of her. We haven't really talked about Mel yet, but I thought she was delightful, and obviously Heimerdinger.
Yeah.
And I like that when you meet Mel, she's like picking out those toys, and the guy that's selling her to him is like, oh yeah, that's for the sharpest minds only. And then she picks one up and it's like, that one's for a child. It's like, perfect. And then gives it to that other counselor.
So funny. The setup for Mel was so good that she literally gets a toy to distract this old asshole counselor, and he immediately sides with her.
Yeah, the deciding vote.
Yeah.
The deciding vote. That whole moment where like he looks up from his toy and realizes that Mel has her hand up, and he's like, oh, it was just so perfect.
Yeah, Mel's interesting. I'm interested in Mel because my guess as to what she was going to be was that she was going to be pretty good, and she was going to be someone who's very on this like someone who maybe tempers Jace's reaching too far, but I don't think so. She's playing the game, and she's out for herself and to make herself she's like, oh, she's super rich, but she's the poorest Medarda, and that's what she's working on, and I'm into it. I'm interested to see what she does.
Yeah, definitely. I think she's going to I think she's going to lean towards villain, but not like Silco villain.
No.
More like, I feel like Silco's more like mad scientist villain. I think she's going to be like Jeff Bezos villain. Like she's going to be the capitalist villain of this group.
I thought you were going to do a Game of Thrones ref or something, but yeah, that's good too.
I hope not.
But man,
she obviously looks way better. She's got that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love I'm trying to think what else, because a lot of it's dominated by because it's introducing the whole Hextech plot line, but I really like the conversation between Vander and Vi on the bridge. In general, the animation helps the characters emote so well, and I do love that moment where there's like a pause, and she just puts her head on his shoulder, and it's
so cute.
Right? It's like a very, again, someone's just thinking about how people actually move and talk. They're not stiff. They're not just standing there, as animation would be. They're moving and acting throughout, like the entire body language even is just kind of constantly working to help us understand and communicate who these characters are, and I really like that. And the entire ending sequence as well is like, I really like that too. Again, a very strong sequence when the music starts playing, and you've got Powder in the bar and Vander kind of trying to cheer her up with the drink with the shitty, all bent, fucked up straw. It's like, man,
yeah,
it's good. It's a sign of the writing how they're able to make the characters not be very frustrating, because I think in that scene with Vander and Vi, she easily could have gotten very mad at him, I think, but they have a more of an understanding moment. And it makes the ending of episode 3 so much more gut-wrenching, is the fact that all of these people, with their flaws, you very much like them, and they're not like doing things that you're like, all right, you fucking deserve this now, you piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like, they're really trying.
Yeah, even I guess this is dipping a bit into episode 3, but even Marcus, right, who is almost entirely just asshole antagonist enforcer, like in kind of the start of episode 3, he gets a little bit of a turn back away from what he's done. He kind of recognizes like, whoa, this is not what's supposed to happen. It's not what I signed up for, and seems to actually have a bit of regret for what he's done. At the end, seemingly, assumedly saving Vi, like out of genuine concern for her safety, right? He tells like if he hears you, he'll kill you, and not just chloroforming her just because, but because we can at least assume he's trying to keep her from getting killed by Silco. I don't know. It's like that guy could have just been. I mean, I assumed he was dead meat, but the fact that he got a little bit more of just a little bit more depth to him. Even that guy is nice.
Yeah. And it's a good opening to how Vi is going to get to where she eventually gets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. When Marcus does go to the bar, actually, when they're initially searching for the kids, I thought it was very weird that, like, they have this secret danger button that they use in case they need it, which drops the monkey, but they don't. It seemed like they didn't necessarily have, like, a plan for what to do. They're just, like, hiding in the rafters, like, and trying to hold on to pipes. Like, they don't have, like, a hideaway room or anything.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess it helps just
it's like a lot of work to put into it to not have a plan.
I mean, it also probably didn't help that they had very little time. You don't know how much time you're going to have when you implement that plan. They didn't have a lot of time.
You push the monkey button.
It worked out, so.
Yeah. No, I got you. I follow you on that one.
Also, at the very end of the episode, when Vi goes to that, the room above, what's his name, Bilko? No, not
Benzo.
Benzo. Benzo's place. In the first episode, when Milo's trying to pick the lock and she kicked the door open, I thought, like, okay, that's just, like, a cool, badass scene for Vi. But when she does it again here, I'm thinking, like, maybe she didn't learn how to open doors. It's just a horrible disability.
Look, man, it's Son. You don't get a complete education.
Some brats kick doors. They don't use doorknobs.
That's funny. It's dirty. You don't want to touch that shit with your hand, man. Pull back a fucking tentacle.
I should have rewatched it because I really like that ending sequence when you're realizing what Vi has done. Because before then, the scene ends with her saying, "What are we going to do?" And I think he says, "I don't know," or something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah.
And sometime between then and Vander trying to cheer Jinx up at the bar, she has made the decision of, I'm going to take the fall for this. And I don't know, the whole Vander realizing it and going on the move. Yeah, it was all very good.
Yeah, it's a very strong lead into the next episode. It's also a nice, again, little misdirect. I will say, across this whole thing, the most of the plot is not that wild. It follows a lot of the lines that you expect it to follow. There's not a ton that's massively shocking and twist. I mean, I don't think that's a problem, partially because the execution on everything is just so tight. But then also every now and then it does kind of tweak things a little, right? Unless no misdirect there. Again, talking about, they could have easily had, in that first episode, Vi and Jinx just start breaking apart because her overhearing that thing, but they kind of undercut that. Just a few things that are nice little, you don't know exactly what's going to happen in the moment to moment anyway. So.
Yeah. So, are we ready for episode 3?
I don't want to talk about episode 3.
Oh, okay. There's one thing. Sorry. I think this is episode 2. So by the end of episode 2, Victor and Jace have met, right? And they've agreed to kind of work on this. So I like there's a little dialogue between Heimer and Victor, where they're talking about it. And Heimer has a line to Victor, where he's like, "Oh, if imagination didn't tempt us to dangerous things, we would never be led astray." That's kind of a Victor perspective, just a little bit, like, oh, maybe if we didn't have that imagination leading us, we just stand straight and narrow. Yeah, nice. Very nice.
I really like Heimer's kind of approach to the crystals and magic. I like that he's afraid and he doesn't want them to experiment, but like the scientist in him still comes out. This happens in episode 3 when, Jace and Victor figure out how to make the magic work. And you could see that he's still like excited in a way, and I really like that they still had that scientist in him, that he was like, oh, okay, but also this is cool.
Yeah, it's like this could never be done, but even if it could, you shouldn't. And then they did it. He's like, wow,
shit,
nice.
You actually
but
did
wait,
it.
no.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So we're talking about 3
Get
then,
a very,
right? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Very early line in this one from Silco. You played the lapdog after everything we suffered.
Yeah.
Again to Vander.
I like Silco a lot as a villain. The only thing I don't like is that he is a scarred villain, which is something that like Bond always does. People have talked about this for so long. Like, stop making your villains disfigured.
I'm more forgiving of this one, just given where it came from.
Yeah,
if
I mean,
he
it
was
makes
generically
sense
scarred
with him and Vander, but still, he is still a scarred villain.
Yeah, I mean, it's still like it still comes from the need to help communicate to the audience what's happening. Like, it's a quick summary. This you can tell with like, this guy's evil. Trust us.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I like in each of these episodes them doing the little, I guess, cold opens, you would say, of an intro of someone. It's kind of giving you the quick highlight of here's the point of this. Here's the episode in a little single scene, right? First one's all about this little 3-way relationship between Vi, Jinx, and the next one's like Jason is his magic, and then this one getting into Silco and where he's coming from, and then the opening in general, because there's a level of violence that has been going on in the show, and then it cranks up a notch, right? You got to crank it. And it's like, all right. I really liked I liked so Grayson, that the enforcer kind of leader that Vander's working with. I like that voice actress already. I think she's in The Expanse. And they all do a great job, but she had a really strong performance, I thought. So I was very genuinely surprised to see her laying dead on the ground at the start of that episode. I remember thinking like, oh shit. Okay, here we go. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, that got really visceral.
Yes.
Yeah.
That one. And Vi, seeing the image of Vi as she's like hearing this and not knowing if Vander's the one being like ripped to pieces, devastating.
Yeah.
So one thing that I really liked about this scene, I think this is technically at the end of episode 2, but we kind of deal with the repercussions in episode 3, but like we had talked a little bit earlier about things that the animation does really, really well. And one thing that I think they do particularly well is convey the feeling of weight. Like Vander is very just like solid. Like even like you mentioned, like Vi resting her head on him. Like even then you feel Vander's weight in just the way that Vi rests her head on him.
It's like she rested her head on a tree trunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you see it everywhere. You get a great sense of every character's just like mass in this world. And I mean, one of those characters is Benzo. And seeing him just lifted, not even just lifted off his feet, just be in one place 1 second and then just be disappeared. He was carried off so fast. Like having 2 full episodes of establishing weight this well and then having him seem weightless in the face of this unseen thing was like very effective.
Yes, yeah. I remember thinking the exact same thing, because up until that point, I remember thinking I really liked, not that we had a ton of combat, but I really liked, again, like you said, the weight of it. It just feels very real. Everything moves with just a little hair slower than it would in like a punchier action flick, right? And I think that gives it a lot of credibility, and then it uses that to establish the danger and threat of something, because it's easy, I think, for us, maybe even as League fans in particular, to think, oh, okay, so he's like a low rent Mundo, right? Like, okay, they can probably handle this, and it's like, no, you gotta understand, this thing is gonna fuck you up, and I really enjoyed that for sure.
Is a random thing, but in case you're curious and didn't have subtitles on or weren't listening at this point, because I think it's only referenced once, the drug is called Shimmer.
I caught that too, and I thought that was interesting because we've seen that referenced elsewhere in Zon pieces, and it doesn't do this. It is much more of a recreational thing, unless it's like, man, I don't remember anyone go. It's almost like bath salts more than ecstasy.
Yeah.
Right?
Is it a dose thing?
Maybe. Who knows, right?
Yeah,
I think
maybe if you missed it, like in some of the trailers.
It's a good question.
Something different.
Yeah, who knows? Because we have a time skip coming. Maybe it gets diluted. Maybe it gets more widespread. It's interesting too, because at the end of 3, right, there's like that big fire and explosion, and it seems like much of their reserves would have been destroyed, and Singed might at least be out of commission for a bit. So maybe, who knows, right? Maybe they have to work with a worse version of it, or something that's more refined, maybe, so that it doesn't have such wild effects. Who knows?
Yeah. Although my guess is that there's probably a lot of, now that I'm thinking about it, like where the big explosion happened, like I'm pretty sure it, was the factory that we had seen, but there definitely seemed like a very under the water portion of this facility that allowed for viewing of the aquatic life. I wonder how that fared.
Yeah, it's a good question, right? I mean, we see it. We see the explosion race down in there, and I don't think it shows the glass shattering at all. So my assumption is that, if it can hold up the pressure of all that water, maybe it's thick enough that, it just kind of blows up some of the inside. We can only assume that Singed survived it, so maybe it's not as catastrophic as it would appear. But
yeah.
I love at one point in this episode, too, when Jace is, making his pitch to Mel as to why they should be allowed into Heimerdinger's room to get the crystals. Like, this is Piltover, land of equality and innovation.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, equality, huh? That is a hot take.
Yeah. I remember thinking that too, but I mean, it feels very intentional, right? Like, because he's shielded from it. He doesn't know.
Part of the Talus family.
Yeah. Speaking of, I'd like that we're getting a bunch of full names. We got Jace Talus, right, and Caitlin Kiraman now. Like, so we know the full names.
So Jason and his mother, are they from the Freljord? Yes.
Maybe they could also
be from, or whether they were visiting.
Yeah.
Why the fuck? Nobody visits the You don't vacation in the Freljord, John.
I mean, she seemed particularly suited for the cold if they're from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows?
I don't know. I'm very curious.
She didn't even have gloves.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, people of the Freljord die in the cold too, but
you would assume that they were from it, they would probably have, be a little more equipped for it. I think.
I guess I'm just very curious why the fuck they were there, and like especially if they belong in Piltover. I don't know. I would have liked to have an explanation of why they were in this fucking wasteland.
Want my theory?
Yes. Is it about the rookie?
It is not about the rookie.
Anytime you give me a theory, I'm a little.
You give one great idea, and then all of a sudden, Talus family, known for their hammers. Maybe they went to learn from Ornn, learn how to make a real hammer.
I'll accept that.
Yeah, I'll accept it. It's not rookie good.
Unlikely, but
yeah, I mean,
makes more sense than they were like having a vacay.
Yeah, honestly,
hey, some people go to Antarctica.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, we can assume that maybe his dad died as a part of that expedition. I got the sense of maybe it was almost like an Ezreal type situation. If you look at the in-client archives experience thing, I don't know, did y'all go and look at that at all? Jace's journal?
Oh, I didn't check out Jace's journal yet.
Well, I will. I guess I'll just. It's only a little piece of thing, but it does talk about him going in. Like, he was in Shurima, and that seems to be part of how he kind of stumbled on these crystals, which lines up kind of with what we know. Maybe it's the case that similarly his parents did expeditions out to other remote regions for resources and shit.
Let's bring our small child to this
right.
fucking hellscape.
That's why I like the family, like, almost vacation idea, and that they got a bad guide.
They didn't
right?
know.
They're marks, right? They come from Piltover and they don't know how to live in the world. Maybe
they went down to Zahn Travel Agency. Yeah. We've got all this money. Where's a good place to visit?
We have the best Freljord travel. Trust me, it's fine. Yeah, no.
All right, we're avoiding episode 3.
A little bit.
I mean, that was in episode 3.
That's true.
Also, just another emote that I want is Victor's face after Jace asks him, "Are you sure you know what you're doing?" And he gives him that little like,
Yeah, that was really good. I really liked Victor a lot, honestly.
Yeah, I'm excited to see more of them. That's what I was trying to say. Is I'm really excited to see that relationship really get hopefully a little more screen time and develop more in this coming set of episodes.
I'm excited, but very worried. And it's the only reason I'm not shipping them hard like everyone else is, because I don't think their friendship is going to have a happy ending whatsoever if they're following any of the lore. I mean...
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I don't always go in for the ship stuff. I will say that for Victor, it would be kind of interesting to do that just because he's so opposed to the idea of being all wrapped up in human emotion and getting into that sort of jilted lover type could maybe be a way of playing with that, but I don't think that's where it will go. I think they're just science bros, but we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. So Episode 3. I fucking loved this fucking episode. It is absolutely like raw despair, and I fucking loved it.
It is raw despair is the perfect description, and it's really setting you up for future acts that anything can happen to anyone. And I don't think that they'll kill like Vi or Jinx or anything like that, but like none of the characters are safe. None of the others are safe.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I would be. I think I talked about in a previous episode that they're probably past the idea of killing a character permanently in lore and leaving them in game.
I think so. Yeah.
But I think even still, right? You don't have to kill them to challenge them or to put them through the ringer, and that's absolutely what this shows. And I think just everything from about the time when Vi leaves it just starts getting worse, and I love it. I love Jinx having that breakdown when she just knows that they're gone. And it's just, it feels, it like, I was very surprised that the emotional beats hit so hard, because I kind of thought that I would like this for being a lore fan and, you know, enjoy it for that. And then I found myself really like, man, this is really sad. This is awesome.
Yeah. I'm glad we started doing this podcast, by the way, before Arcane, because it made me more attached, for sure. And now watching Arcane has made me more emotional about the game.
Yeah.
Like, it's made me feel more attached to the game in a lot of ways and the characters in it. But yeah.
Yes. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if we just want to start like digging into it. I love Vi stand on the bridge, talking again about the weight, right? It all kind of culminates in that sequence where those punches land. And, you know, I like the setup of even just the geometry of the scene, and that instead of her being kind of surrounded and them kind of coming at her one at a time, it's like, no, she's posted up on a bridge. It helps her deal with these numbers. And so there's more of a reason why it's happening. Blood, I was like, oh man, there's blood on those gloves, and you know, she's starting to take punches, and by the end of it, you know, her arms are like hanging down by her sides, right? It's someone who has a good sense of what boxing is like, and that after about 2 or 3 minutes, fucking exhausted, can't do shit. And oh man, is this the moment of Vi strapping them on was just so cool, because you're waiting for her to put these makeshift, her beginner gloves, right? Before she gets the good ones. It's just really great. And Jinx, like, being there and watching her sister, and like, I remember sitting there and being like, I wanted Jinx to help, and then she does, and you're like, no, not like that. Yeah.
That's not how I wanted you to help. But yeah, the whole sequence of the crystal exploding. First of all, like, the first time we see a Hextech crystal, it explodes. And then seeing this little girl take like 4 of them and put them in her little bag, horrifying. Like, a really truly horrifying moment. I also like it makes it more realistic that they fear magic, because they're playing with this crystal, and we know what it can do. It literally like blew up a building. So that was great. But what I liked from an editing perspective, what they did is they kept showing the monkey explode, and then from different points of views, and they go back to it several times.
You get a full three views of that one.
Oh, yes. It's so perfectly timed.
And each time it gets worse. Each time it gets worse.
Exactly. It gets worse every time.
Yeah, I mean, 2 things about this. Like, right before this, too, we were talking a little bit about the weight of Vi on the bridge, too. But again, with that monster, like, she's just taken out an entire bridge full of people, and she's going in for, like, the kill strike on this massive monster. And, like, it was very anime, not even, like, looking at her, just, like, half a second snatch her out of the air, like, nope.
Yeah, just...
out of your depths, kid.
Yes, again, absolutely. I was thinking that, too. I like... You know, talking about Milo lockpicking and very genuinely doing it, and even that moment of Vander, like, calm down, you can do this, right? It's just like, I didn't steal from. I love Vander a lot. I love Vander so much.
Me too.
Man, the fact that they were out, they were scot free. It's like just pepper on that tragedy. Excellent, beautiful, right? Because otherwise you could make the argument that, well, they were going to get killed anyway. But it's like, no, they were good. They had done it. Oh, man.
I agree. There are people who are like that they probably would have been chased down, but I agree with you, Mark. I think that they were they set it up to be like they were out.
Yeah.
And Jinx jinxed it. Powder jinxed it.
Yeah.
And like the look of happiness on her face when the explosion went off and she was just falling, presumably to her death. I'm still not sure how she got out of that one.
Yeah, that's a fair point. It would be nice. I assume they just kind of you're so caught up in it, right? Like maybe that's something where in hindsight, show her landing on or in something to help kind of explain it. But
yeah, because Vander didn't survive the fall in monster form.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Maybe he was already fucked up and on the way out, but I don't know. But
I think so.
Yeah, man, goddamn. After that explosion, and you've got the two kids have died, and I was really, I kind of.
Oh, I was so upset. I knew they were going right. Like
yes,
they were the Biggs and Wedge of this game for sure.
But I was so. I mean, the goggles alone. Vi's wearing them in her splash art, but. Still.
Yeah, I mean, I think that speaks to the quality with which they made you feel for them within such a short span of time. And even, again, as League fans going in, kind of knowing like these guys are, I see a few red shirts in the mix.
Never heard of these folks.
Yeah, but it still really lands. And I think part of that lands also from the way that the characters react to it, specifically Vi, when she is trapped under that door and she just is bawling, and it's just like, man, it makes me feel bad just thinking about it. It's just like, God damn. You can't tell if she's crying because she is crushed under a door or because what she's seeing, or both, or all of it.
All of it.
Yeah. And then Vander coming out, and again, talking about that weight, and he just starts trying, like, I just get so hyped. So I got to slow down.
I also like that after the explosion, we mentioned, Vi stuck, Vander stuck, the other two are dead. Silco unharmed. Deckard as monster, barely phased.
Yeah. Absolutely true. Yeah, I don't know, man. It really makes me feel really. I don't know about both good and bad. I don't know. It really starts to land like when Vander comes out and he's standing up to that thing, and man. I don't know. I'm just like getting at a loss for words, just like trying to process it all in my brain, just thinking through all the little bits, because I think that whole end sequence is so strong. And I guess my question is to y'all is, how do you feel about, because I know they kind of intersperse it with cuts back to Jace and Victor making their discovery. Like, how do y'all feel about that? Do you think that works? Do you think that
I think tonally it can be a little strange, but I love that we're bouncing between people experimenting on a crystal, and then we're flashing to people who were just killed in this devastating explosion by this exact same crystal. So I don't know, like you're seeing like the joy of people discovering something along with people just getting annihilated by the exact same thing.
And the joy is the same in both circumstances. Like Jinx's joy is just the same as like Jace's and Victor's.
Yeah, almost like a warped kind of discovery type situation, right?
Yes. And I think it puts a dark shadow on it, because if they didn't have this other scene with Vi and everybody, and it was just Jace and Victor making this discovery, you would be like, oh my god, that's great, good for you, you guys are amazing. But seeing this darker side of Hex Tech, then you're like, okay, hang on.
Yeah.
I'm glad you made this discovery, but hang on, this might not be a good thing.
Yes. No, I completely agree. I think that serves that purpose very well. I know it I remember I was like, does this feel weird from like a tonal clash type? But I think no, it's nice to show kind of the heights and depths with which, it's showing for us things that we've been kind of told in episode 2, right? About like magic is dangerous. We already kind of knew that, but it really actually lands, right? It's easy enough to be like, oh, that's just funny little Heimerdinger. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's cute. You want to ruffle his hair, which is probably
silly
highly
old man.
offensive.
Also, this was like a tiny little moment, but when they first went in to rescue Vander, and he's like, how did you guys get in here? There are guards everywhere. And she's like, oh, we found an open window. And like the moment of realization, as soon as she said we found an open window out loud, was so great.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, oh no.
You need to get the fuck out.
Yeah.
That was great.
And then I mean, obviously the kind of the culmination of all of it is just that last sequence with Vi and Jinx, right?
Mm-hmm. It's the moment Vi realizes that Jinx is the one responsible. It's made me very angry at Riot for how they're kind of advertising a lot of this. I don't think you guys are on Twitter very much, but a big thing has been hashtag Team Vi or hashtag Team Jinx. And I'm like, why are you dividing it this way? This is a devastating tale of like these abused, traumatized sisters, and I hate it. I hate that this is the pitch that they went. I know that they wanted some kind of hashtag. They wanted people to take sides in some way.
Hashtag Piltover.
Hashtag Piltover. Hashtag Zon. Do fucking that. I hate, especially after this devastating ending scene of the television show. Of Act 1, I should say.
Fun fact. Haley Steinfeld, voice actress for Vi, is Team Jinx.
You know, I really sympathize with that. You know, it makes me think of the sense I got when I was looking, you know, reading various takes and responses and people taking either side and saying, oh, this person did this thing wrong. Or it's like, oh, why didn't this person think this through? It was like, it's bigger than that, right? Like, we have to understand these characters are behaving in ways that make sense. It makes absolute sense from their perspective. And it's not, like I said, it's just a tragedy. It's just sad.
It is. Yeah. It was an accident.
Both did the best they could with the information they had and the abilities they had, and just nothing worked out.
Isn't that the best thing about it all, right? Like, because I know we've gone through, think about like Azir Zareth, think about, that's the one that comes to my mind the most, where they're trying to create a tragedy, and it's like, wait, there's all these logical things that should have happened that didn't, and you've kind of skirted. But this one is like, no, everything's taken to its very reasonable, logical conclusion, and it's just utterly sad at the very end of it, and it's the best. It's just
yeah, especially like even Jinx, like, yeah, she was gonna stay put, she was gonna do what Vi told her until she saw, you know, oh my god, Vi didn't realize that I had these things, and these things can help. Now I have information she didn't have, so I'm gonna go help. And like,
yeah, you know, and I think even if she didn't, I don't think there's anything unreasonable to say. You know, I think it's helped a lot by the fact that they're kids, right? They're kids, and kids don't always operate in the most logical way. But I don't think it doesn't even try and lean on that, I would say. I think that can sometimes be a crutch when you've got poorly written characters to try and say, oh, they're kids, they don't behave logically. It's like, no, they behave logically to their best ability. And then again, it just helps it feel very right. It just feels right. It just feels like beautiful.
Yeah, because what powder does, I could see an adult thinking that would also help, you know.
Yeah, especially when you don't know enough about the
magic you're playing with.
You know that it's powerful, but So what do you guys think about the final scene too, with, you know, Jinx embracing Silco and Silco being kind of paternal? Do you think it is hey, you've just been betrayed the way that I was betrayed, and we're kind of kindred here? Do you think it's more of a, I could use this, or like a combination of the two?
I'm sure some degree of combination. I think from a storytelling perspective, much more the former, right? Because that's something that the whole episode is carrying through, is this showing us this relationship that he had with Vander, right? And how they reference feeling as though they're brothers. Vander says, you're my brother. And there's even someone kind of pointed out the scene of, you know, Vi holding on to Jinx's face, and as to, you know, Vander's, you know, strangling Silco, right? In the exact same framing of looking dead on in the camera. And I loved it because I really was like, oh, it'd be a real shame if he was just like, I can manipulate this person, I can use them to my ends, because that's just very, you know, one note villain. But for him to actually like see someone who's kindred and someone who he can help, right? It's like, that speaks more to his motivations in terms of he is genuinely trying to help in the way that he has determined is the way to do it. All right, and that's always the best. You know, motives that are hard to find fault with at their core, even if the execution does not match with what we would want, right?
Yeah, I think in that moment it was definitely kindred, and I think that later, as she's older, it might be more of like a control thing, like I can use her. I mean, all of it's so devastating, but like, what's really devastating about that moment to me is that Vi Vi just needed a minute, right?
Yes.
Like, I know she shouldn't have smacked her sister, but she just lost like 3 of her loved ones. She needed a fucking minute, just a minute to like get away from Powder, take a breath. She wasn't going to abandon her. I think that we would all agree on that. I don't think that
she was going back for her until she got chloroformed.
Yeah. I mean, but I think even if Silco didn't go there, I think if Jinx had just stayed there and no one else came around, I feel like she would have gone back to her. So she just in that 1 minute that she needed to breathe and she deserved to breathe. She just lost her sister forever, probably.
Yeah, I completely agree. And this is again back to your point of what side is there even to take here, right? It's just
there isn't. It's team therapy, please. It's team. Please get my girls together. Get them a nice counselor, maybe a social worker. Please.
Seems like a job for Mundo.
Fuck. No.
Mundo's medical.
He'd probably do better than everyone else that's been trying to fucking help him. So.
Gosh. But yeah. I almost wish I didn't know anything about League, because I feel like it would help make... Because I can... where some of these pieces are going to end up, and I feel like it would be even more interesting to come at it from the perspective of, I don't know where the fuck this is going.
Yeah.
Right? You assume, like, from an outsider perspective, this 9-story arc is going to end with... them getting back together, but as League players
we know who Jinx becomes. I am hoping though that Arcane does extend beyond the current Jinx canon. I guess you know what I mean. Like, we haven't done Jinx's episode yet, but I am hoping that Arcane goes beyond what's already been told, so then maybe Jinx does end up elsewhere, some other way. I don't know.
Yeah,
be neat.
I'm curious to see how it lines up, because her character as it is in game is very, there's also a lot of comedy there, and this is not a comedy show, so
No.
Yet.
I mean, I think that'll be Act 3 Jinx, right? The one that we see in game, that kind of
I would assume,
hilarious one. Yeah.
An interesting thing too, because I know when we were watching the trailers and everything like that, one of the big things that people picked up on was the fact that her eyes aren't purple or pink in these trailers. They're blue. But Powder does not have blue eyes. Powder has gray eyes the entire episode, unless she's specifically looking at a crystal, or at the very last scene when she's looking at the flames and they're glowing the reflective purple there. But I don't know at what point her eyes actually turn blue, but they're straight up gray.
Well, it was interesting, talking about Mr. X, how, there was promotional posters showing... that shot of her eye peeking out from someone's arm, and what they showed in those promotionals was not what ended up in the show, right? Because I think that it is shown as blue, or at least that kind of gray in that poster, and what's in the show is a very different scene. So again, it seems like Riot's kind of aware of that people are going to really dig into what they get promotional wise, and is willing to hold things close to the chest in some ways.
I'm also curious too. We had mentioned the fact that they had changed Jace's ethnicity too, but his eyes also going from blue in game to the brown in the show. I'm curious if they're actually going to end up turning blue too after the crystals, or whether this is a decision they're sticking with.
I'm not sure. I felt weird seeing Arcane after our Jace episode when I said I'm a white man about Jace, because he is not a white man in Arcane. But I think it's because the voice actor is Latino, I'm assuming. I don't know. I'm not sure. But he's very white in League, okay?
I think some of it's, Caitlyn. I mean, I think that, and Caitlyn, I think some of that's just to give them more distinct faces. And I think Caitlyn in particular, I find it welcome just to say, because she has, her in her base splash normally, she is very generic face, and just give her something where, you can pick Caitlyn out from a crowd now, I think. And what I assume, it's still as I've seen of the post time skips, oh yeah, that's Caitlyn. I can see her now instead of just a nameless, generic face where if you got rid of all the outfit, how would you tell, right? And I wonder if that's almost the same thing with Jace. It's just, give him a more distinct look, almost, maybe. Who knows? But
How we feeling?
I'm feeling good.
I mean, I'm not feeling good.
Yeah, I guess not.
I'm feeling. I'm feeling excited. I will say,
so excited.
I went into this with high expectations. Obviously, like even before seeing the trailers, like I expected a lot from the show. The trailers made me expect even more from the show, and then the show still fucking blew my expectations away. So like I'm feeling very excited for the next 6 episodes. And
I want to see adult Jinx so much, or teen Jinx so much. Like I loved Powder and I love seeing her, but I really want to see.
Yeah.
And I'm dying to see Vi and Caitlyn interact.
And yeah, it's exciting for the series, and it's exciting for outside of this series too. I think part of the big nervousness probably Brandon felt, this is a huge proof of concept, and I think video games moving into a movie or television show medium has had very limited success in the past. I remember when we were still at Riot and the Warcraft movie came out, and they were watching
a gem.
They were watching that very carefully, because up until that point, Blizzard had been kind of the gold standard for storytelling and cinematics, and this was going to be kind of a litmus test for could we do this. And after
they made
that
Space Jam
happened, I think there was a lot of nervousness, and seeing the level of success that Arcane is seeing right now. Like I think I saw that it was the #1 show in like 58 countries or some shit like that. Like
wild.
Like this, I think this is going to open the door for a lot more stories. I think Arcane is going to be the start of what probably ends up being a hopefully really long and awesome line of future shows that tell these more intimate stories.
Yeah, that would be great, because that would give our podcast more life.
Hey. Riot always helping us out. What can I say?
Yeah, thank you.
No, I mean, I think...
Hell, after each one of these, we're going to have to go back to all the champions we've done and redo them, because they're changing the lore.
Don't worry, folks. We got content for years.
Get ready for the second episode, the second Jace episode in 3 weeks.
No, I'm not doing that right away. We're going to talk about him in a year.
Yeah. No, you really... That's an excellent kind of summary of the situation, and I absolutely agree that... I also had the worry, of like maybe sometimes you really look forward to a thing, and then you get the thing, and it's like I kind of liked anticipating it more than having it.
Yeah.
But this is not that. Even with such high expectations, I also was absolutely fucking floored. I love the Andy cinematic, but this is that times 100, right? Again, despair. Riot is really good when they induce despair in you, and not in game. Right? But I can only hope that we get more of this, and I would be very, very surprised if what we get for the rest of Arcane doesn't land as well as this does. They always fuck it up. They always fuck up the landing, but I would be shocked if that happened.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
I would run outside crying if that happened. Goddamn, like applause, like absolute. Well fucking done on almost like I think every level, right? There was not any part of this that I can even genuinely complain about. At best, there were little things like the Zon, the setup, and what's going to happen with that, and who knows, by the end of it, maybe that will be addressed anyway. But everything else is just fucking nails it. I'm a fan of animation. I don't know a lot about it, but I like watching animated things, and this is probably my favorite animated piece of content that I've ever seen, I would say, and I'm only a little biased.
It's up there with Into the Spider-Verse for me, I would say.
I know
it's hard to kill Into the Spider-Verse, though.
It is very hard.
Or knock that from number 1.
Yeah, I mean, we bitch a lot on this show, Riot, if you're listening. But like anyone who had anything to do with the show, like, you fucking killed it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Literally, the only thing I complained about were 2 strands of hair on my face. So
fix that, please.
No, I'm sure grown Vi won't have that right.
What if
She'll
she
have
does?
learn to brush them. Oh, please, Mark, don't put that curse on me. What a fucking first world curse, Sam.
Piltover curse.
Yeah.
Shit. All right. I think we're done because it's been almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
I think we're done talking about Act 1 of Arcane.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for listening. If you want to chat about this more, we have a Discord now. It's pretty exciting. I will link that in the description so you can join our discussions.
Yeah. And if you follow us on Twitter, it's linked there too.
Yes. Mm-hmm. We also have a Twitter.
Thank you to those of us who have already joined the community and started talking to us. You're great.
I know. I posted it. I posted it on Twitter. I was like so nervous. I was like, 2 people are going to join and they're going to be like, why is no one here? But thankfully more people joined than that. So our Twitter, by the way, is @loreheads. And we post these on YouTube. People sometimes chat in the comments there.
Yeah, for sure.
As well.
Yeah, everyone's been real nice.
If you want to chat, we'll be there.
They're very friendly, and I appreciate everyone who shows up and listens and all that. It's really cool.
Please stay friendly. I need people to be nice to me.
Team Jinx gonna come fuck you up.
No! I'm not
they can unite on one thing, and that's fuck this.
I said I was team therapy.
Yeah.
That means I'm fans of both. All right. Join us next week. Probably next week. I think we're going to try to get this out a little bit earlier. And we'll talk about Act 2.